we recently dropped Toby off at college, and his RA was listening to his record player as, you know, we're going analog, getting away from that digital.
Mm-hmm.
And Toby like looks at new person, right? Like, and he's like, John Denver. The guy goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh man, they're like, they're besties because, you know.
Toby likes John Denver.
Yeah. Grandpa.
Mm-hmm.
Kettler.
Actually, Grandma. My mom loves John Denver.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then later, there was a moment that the chaplain,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this brother has like this deep soul, like,
Mm-hmm.
what we got to pause for a moment. What happened a few Sundays ago when I meant to sing and you said don't. Like
No, I said no.
You said no. I was going to bless the church with the harmonies of my voice, and you said,
well, I didn't intend for it to come out. It was supposed to be an inside the head voice. And you said you're going to sing, and it just popped out. And I went, no. And I reached over, like held my hand on Cub. I was like, no.
And I was like, well, we're just skipping this part of the sermon. We're done with that. Back to
anything.
Help me.
Right. There we go. I was helping edit.
Edit? We had this conversation. What is it about my voice that you said?
Okay. Well, I think you have like the tone of your voice is very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hear melody, and then you also hear harmony, and then your voice doesn't know where to go.
Yeah.
And so then you just zigzag around all of them. But you
That's why
sound
I sit
nice.
front row, people. None of you have to. Every once in a while, I'll have my microphone on, which is patched into the team's ears, and they'll look over. They're like, you know, like it's. Welcome to the Something Different podcast. So excited. Bonus episode here. I'm sitting with my lovely best friend, Jenny, and another amazing friend, lifetime staffer, I feel like. You've been here for like a decade plus.
Yeah.
We're on 13 years.
Yeah. Yep.
Come on. Kelsey Van Hemert. You are married to the wonderful Carrie Van Hemert, who is the executive director of operations, but you run the next gen.
Yep.
And we're here. This bonus episode, the idea behind it is to talk to you about teens and screens and the tweens and screens and before the tweens
and the
and
toddlers
screens. And get this, we want to talk about you and your screens because it's challenging. It's one of the biggest topics. But before we do that, real quickly, I want to jump into some parenting. I think many people, they're trying to figure out, you know, school has started. They're like in that little bit of race. We've got new parents, young parents. So why don't we give a little bit of the history? What's your parenting?
What are my qualifications?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we just launched Toby to college. So he's almost 19 very soon. Then we have a 17-year-old girl. We have a 15-year-old girl. And then we have one that's very close to 14.
Are you afraid to say their names that they might lose?
Oh, no. Toby, Lydia, Blythe, Sophie.
You are paying the $5.
Yes.
This is great.
I'm a freeloader anyway.
All right. And at the Van Hemert home?
Yep. We have Sammy, who's 9, and Lucy's 7, and Charlie's 5. So
look at that.
Yeah.
So the school age years are here.
Elementary's here.
It's wild. So I'm thinking of, we've had this year before. It's the year of pregnancies, right? And so the babies are coming. We got new moms or moms becoming moms of a second child, a third child. Come on, hallelujah. More kids in the Bridge Kids Ministry.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a sign of a healthy church. It's a sign of a healthy marriage. All right. So, because babies are being made. Here's my question for the new moms, even maybe the new dads. Like, I'm talking that 0 to 1, 0 to 2, or just getting to that second child. Do you have any memories of that stage or any advice, like just on the front end for, you know?
I think a lot about things I miss from that stage is they're not talking back to you. So bedtime, but bedtime can be very sweet because you're thinking about all these like, who are you becoming and what are you going to be? And so I think bedtimes especially, or all those feeding times, you're just holding them so much.
Yep.
And so much of that time, I feel like I developed prayers for them that carried me through now when bedtime is like, put your pajamas on, brush your, you know, it's so busy.
Yeah.
And those
Oh,
times
you put your shoes on.
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And so those habits, I think, were really developed. So that would just be, a word of
that's
encouragement.
lovely.
Just like you have so much holding, thinking time over them to really use that to develop. Like, what does the Lord want to speak over your future when we're not thinking about?
I remember we had a blue rocking chair, swivel rocking chair, and you as the rocker would slowly kind of like slide down in your own kind of like, how do I get just right? But it was that time where like my thoughts about the Lord and this child really got forged. And if that seems new to you, seems foreign to you, and you have like, I would just encourage you, like, ask the Lord to reveal. Like, don't think you have to like have some kind of like ministry experience or expert in the Bible. What you have is a heart that wants to love God and wants to love this child, and God wants to help unlock that for you. And so you just, Lord, what are you dreaming about this? And to see how that goes. I think that so many people might hear our stories and go like, well, you're the professional, you're the like, and like, it's not.
When
it's
you're a
not
new
like,
parent, you do not feel like a professional. You know what I
Amen.
mean? So,
yeah.
and when you're send them off to college, you don't feel like a professional. So,
Right.
Yeah.
We were all new at some point,
Right.
trying to figure this out. So we're trying to share some things that work well. We'll talk about screens and some of the things that didn't go well.
Right.
So jumping to you, Jenny, you got any memory or advice?
Yeah, memory's tricky because you are so sleep deprived. I think looking back, I wish I was so focused on trying to like do it right, and even like the thinking about it and the praying and and I wish I would have just recognized that I was more of a teammate with the Lord than like it was depending on me. Like I think I took like I have responsibilities and roles, yes, but like I don't need to be anxious about it. I don't need to be amped up. It doesn't need to. When I think back to those times, I think like I get kind of like it all depended on me, and I think that was just not knowing myself, all of that. But I think I wish I would have recognized the partnership aspect of it more, and that it didn't.
I think you highlight something there though, like there's different personalities in parenting too.
For sure.
There's some that are like, I gotta not mess this up. Like there's the pressure's high, and then there's others just like it's a little bit more free, and there's not one right personality. Right. There's not one right parenting strategy. There's not one right. So
right.
So and many of you hopefully are blessed with a teammate like and so there's that aspect as well where
which can be really helpful and also really hard. I mean, when you have different personalities.
Different than my singing. How is this one hard?
Well, it's just I'm not always right. Like you have to figure out how that dances.
For sure.
That's all I meant.
No, I know. I mean, like we could jump to like young age or even like the tween age where I would come home and I would see something that normally is not allowed. And so I would address it and you're like, oh, whoa. I said,
here's the backstory.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, right. And so there's that kind of misses too. And so, in light of that, parenting is hard. It is nonstop. What I could do for the next 2 hours, but I won't, is all the times I missed it. And there's just these moments where you missed it. You're even in the moment of missing it. And now you're trying to recover from missing it. You miss it with your spouse.
Right.
You miss it with your child. How have you come to terms with all of the times you two have missed it? All of the times that it just hasn't gone like and all you recognize, because my guess is that there's parents out there that like that's their default is like they like I screw it up and like now what would you say? Like you've been there.
That would be one of my core memories from having an infant, and Sammy was still an infant, and I remember just getting so angry and throwing something to the floor, and that anger was like so
like
shocking
visceral
to me and disturbing kind of. And so just one of those times you're like, I'm mad at a baby. What am I doing? And for me, I think I remember being in church the next Sunday and singing Good Good Father and just weeping and just remembering like worship was so important for me, especially in that season, always. Yep. But just like, I missed it again. Need worship to heal me, connect me back to Jesus.
And I want to highlight that, like, if you're hearing this, like, there is a spirit attached to melodies, songs.
Oh yeah.
Some usher in the presence of God. Some don't. So in your car, in your home, on your whatever listening ear things are, what are those called?
AirPods?
Buds. Earbuds.
I think that's the old one. I think AirPods is,
okay, you know what I'm talking about. You got tunes in there. And I would just say, you're allowing a spiritual presence. Which one is it? Because one can change the atmosphere of the room in a way that makes things lighter, and one can create more, like it almost can create more rage or discouragement or defeat. There is power in it. And I love how you just said, like, worship what, like, there. So here it is. Lesson 1. If you're taking notes and you're like, man, I messed up, get in the presence of a loving Father who he still trusts you. He still loves you. He's still called you. He's still present. So I love that. Did anything jump for you about missing it or a response to missing it?
Well, something that sparked from what she was talking about.
There's an order to how we're doing this. This is the something
very scripted.
Something
very scripted.
Different.
Well, one thing someone said at one of my baby showers that has always stuck with me is, like, the matching of your child or children with you is not an accident. And so, like, what your child brings to you and what you bring to your child is that's ordained. And so I think, like, he's not surprised by the frustration, or he's not surprised by the personality clashes, or he's not surprised by X, Y, and Z. And so he chose it, and it's both a blessing and a method of, like, purification.
Yeah.
And so just being mindful of that, like, that's really beautiful. Like, it wasn't like you just made a baby. Oh, this happens to be the one that was here. I mean, it's very
well in our culture, and like different, like we try to devalue, like, we make independence and individuals so paramount that like, no, God is a God of connection, of family. He knit us together with intentionality. I love thinking about our God is so knowing. He's so all knowing that he thought through every possibility that could be, that didn't happen.
Right. It wasn't like he just stopped with the one that he chose.
Our God is good. He and so he thought through every scenario possible, and he deemed the solution and the output that is that's best. So you don't need to second guess it.
And it's his best, not what we would consider the right.
Amen. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's a point worth, like, that has carried me through too, a little bit of, like, man, why are they so strong-willed? Oh, well, it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
No.
You think marriage is a full-length marriage?
Oh, parenting. 1,000%.
The reference point is this. Like, you think getting married is about you getting to be happy because you're in love. That's pretty low on the list, actually, in the divine scheme of things.
Right.
Yeah.
God is trying to work out a witness to the world, and he's trying to purify and make you. And we are living proof. I got married for one reason only.
Yeah.
I liked me. I mean, like, honestly.
I would agree.
Over time, all of a sudden you're like, wow, the selfishness and the self-discovery of like, I'm just a better version because of you. And it's because I've had to sacrifice me. And it's that ongoing journey. And man, being a parent, it is moments of feeling helpless and heartache that you didn't even know could exist.
Yeah.
And also delight and smiles. And like, I forget if it was Derek, or someone else, they had just had another child, and they were like, I didn't know there was another level of capacity. I thought, like, my love, like, it's 100%, and now I have a child. So is it like 50-50? and then you get another one. So now does it go 33, like, and it's like, no, it's 100, it's 100, it's 100. And like God's ability to grow a capacity to love more, it's amazing. It's amazing. Now, one of the things that many of you who are watching, maybe you've got a challenge. Your child is an adult. Maybe there's been significant conflict with your parent. Maybe there's ways where right now your child is giving you strife and you're like, where are the solutions? And I want to just say, like, to think that we can address every one of your scenarios. I always want to say, like, hey, if you're in a place that is hard and brutal and just feeling hopeless, I'm first of all sorry, and I still believe in prayer. And I don't know that the prayer might actually be the prayer that you want, but the prayer is that God can still be at work. He can do something in you. He can do something in your child. He can do something in your parent. And so I want to have that there. I also want to resource people. Like, I think sometimes we're like looking for, and so a few months back we did a parenting in the 21st century, and I would say that was one of our better series. The first two, when you and I were on stage, meh, but like, you know,
It's great.
I think it's good for people to see that we like each other, that it like, you know, but those first two messages, I just think really help people see, like, you know, where the foul pole. And so I'm not original. Like, some of those stories were original because they were me, but I read, and I texted and emailed some people and I said, what have been some of your favorite resources leading into parenting? So I'm going to share some of these with you. And if you are familiar with it, chat a little bit. And if you're not familiar, then I will.
Okay.
You'll expound.
So here's the first one. Habits of the household.
Will these be in show notes?
They'll be in show notes
I've
now.
always wanted to say that.
Yeah. Mission accomplished.
There we go.
Practicing the Story of God in Everyday Family Rhythms by Justin Whitmel Earley. What do you know about this one? Either one of you? Anything?
Yeah, I love this. It was a couple years ago. We actually sent home in Bridge Kids a little card with prayers, bedtime prayers.
Yeah.
And he summarizes, he's like, sometimes bedtime's crazy. So here's a really simple one. You know, God loves you. Jesus died for you. The Holy Spirit's with you. Amen. So
Amen.
just really
Love it.
practical. I love
Now
that
get
he
in your
just-
bed.
Yeah, exactly.
Finish brushing your teeth.
So he gives really practical ideas that I found really helpful, just to be able to, I can do that tonight. You know?
Right. What I liked about this one is it was very themey, like the waking up time, like meal time, marriage, where like the categories were super helpful. All right.
Yeah.
Are my kids on track? No. I was talking to Jenny. Yours might be, but here's the subtitle of this one: the 12 emotional, social, and spiritual milestones your child needs to reach. Woo! This one, Sissy Goff.
Yeah,
she's got it. Have you listened to her?
I actually have not listened to her. What's the book? Anxious. She wrote one about
Raising Worry-Free Girls.
Yeah,
she did write that.
She wrote that, and then she has like a devotional for girls.
Yep.
So I've purchased that and looked through that, and she's
But I mean,
she knows what she's talking about. And David Thomas, they're together.
Expert
I mean, as
on
far as
raising boys.
exactly, yeah.
emotional and social and spiritual milestones. This is something we talk a lot about Bridge Kids. We think that we want to just keep gaining more traction, helping parents have spiritual markers in the journey with their child, memorable moments with their child. Can you speak to some of the milestones that we've talked about or have implemented or are in the works, just for those who
For Bridge Kids?
Yeah. Yep. So I think baby blessing is obviously the first one. You know, a baby comes into this world and there's something significant about saying we want to have this baby blessed in the name of Jesus. And so that's something we do twice a year at the Bridge. We love that. Love when parents do that. And then wanting to keep getting better at figuring out how do we give kids a Bible once they can read, and how do we make that exciting? And so we give kids a lot of Bibles, and we're still working on how do we make this a big deal. So Bible reading, I think, is one. Baptism is one. When
really upping it with our sixth grade and even all the way through high school, because we're finding friends are inviting friends that are in ninth grade, and like, how do we backlog some of the Bridge Kids experience?
Like, so they know what they're saying yes to.
More and more. And so trying to reimagine what that process looks like for a student experience, and what does it look like for them to have a mentor to kind of walk with them? Something we talked about. They're still in that back to school adventure kind of thing that's in there. And we've been talking about a topic we're going into in just a second, cell phone permit. So
good stuff.
One of my favorites, parenting, getting it right. Andy and Sandra Stanley. They're funny.
Yes.
They're real.
Easy to read.
Yeah.
Easy to read, or just buy it and listen to it.
Yeah.
I loved when they were talking about just kind of rules of the home, and they just had two: honor your mother, because like that really just like it sets a standard of how will you handle authority, because God's ultimately authority. And so and they just unpack what honoring your mother, if that is a rule, how it covers so many things. And then number two, don't tell a lie. And the reason why don't telling a lie is so big is because it breaks a relationship, because trust. And so their big emphasis is like, how are we friends with our kids? And so in sharing with their children, these are our two rules. One of them said, what about worshiping the devil? And he just says, all right, you had me. And I considered adding, don't worship the devil. But since there was no indication of worshiping the devil, I stuck with the two rules, but said, I will add it if I need to, kind of thing. Right. I just think this book is brilliant, super helpful.
Yep.
And then the last one, this is more of a ministry tool. It's just a phase, so don't miss it. This is just chock full of things. One of the things I love about this, and this is more of like, you can library check this out from the bridge as long as you don't leave the building with it, and we'll let you look through it. We'll help you get one. But like it has, when they are 0 to 1, the phase when nobody sleeps, everybody smells, and one mesmerizing baby convinces you, I need you now. And just like the little titles they have, and you're like, oh, that's so true. And so your 4th and 5th graders, the phase when friends are best friends, games are for competition, and your confident kid will insist, I've got this, right? Like, and we've walked through all of these. Now, this book, the first time I read it, it said that we have 936 weeks from the birth to the time they graduate. And I remember doing a sermon maybe a decade, maybe 13 years ago. And I had, actually Sophie was just born, and I had 4 different containers, and I filled them with the number of Legos we had left with each of them. And almost all 4 of them were full. And we took the last Lego. No, we didn't literally have this at our home, but like symbolically, like we just got rid of the last Lego. And, I wear my heart on my sleeve, which ends up on the platform when I teach. So it's been amazing how many people have asked how we're doing.
Yeah, knowing we took him, to college.
And then today, we're watching Hamilton. Like our girls were somehow watching Hamilton, and there's a scene where Hamilton's son, he loses in a duel, and they're singing this song, and like the mom and the dad are singing about how the kid is gone, and I look over at you. You were a mess.
I was a mess.
Why were you a mess?
Because I miss him.
Yeah,
it's real.
It's real.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that is just interesting is just you're on this journey, and we're called to train them, to send them. And it's interesting. Many of the calls God has on your life are hard. They're hard. So if you're a parent, the call is hard. And it leads to more hard. Parenting is hard. But God wants to use it in your life and in theirs. And so along the way, there will be constant outside pressure to damage the relationship and disrupt the goal. The goal is to help this child know that as much as I love you, there's a God in heaven who loves you more. He died for you. You need him. You can believe in him. He is constant. To graft faith into the child. And there is a real enemy that wants to come up with as many things. So this leads to the conversation that we don't have time to cover it all, but I'm just saying, like screens, it's crazy how much those can disrupt a child's journey and a parent and child's relationship. There are not fond memories of disciplining our children along the ramifications of screen time, cell phone, and content. And it's crazy. I did a little bit of research on this. They asked parents, is it, they more than just parents, they said, is it easier or harder to raise children now. And overwhelmingly, like, it's now. And 78% strongly agreed or agreed, right? There's like 22% like, no, back in the day it was, and you're just like, no. And so the top 3 reasons why they said it was harder was technology, the world is more dangerous, and there's a lack of common morality. Technology,
Yep.
the world is more dangerous, and there's a lack of common morality. And so in light of that, they then went on and they said, so what are the current parenting challenges? And the ones that rose to the top were discipline, which we've talked about.
Yeah.
It's
It's brutal.
we got to revisit again and again, but like, you're playing with this boundary. When we're dealing with discipline, it's truth and grace. That's not allowed. That got out of bounds, both as a parent or as a child. And grace, like, I love you, but I love you enough to keep you in the field. I love, like, so we're not going to, so we're balancing that. So discipline. Time management was actually the second leading parenting challenge. Like, and I would just say, if you have a dual income home, it would rise. Like, how do we divide and conquer, be all the places we need to be, provide the experiences we want to, like, how do, like, in a recent conversation with Pastor Craig, he was just talking about like getting back into the sleep schedule of school, right? Like, you got all of that going on. And then helping kids grow character.
Was
like,
the third one?
Was a third one, but it was tied with monitoring technology. Now, all of those were 1% different. So it's like, these were like, these just peaked out, and then everything else paled in comparison. This is like a 2017 study. Andy Crouch is my source, for those who want to know. But it was just fascinating to me, like, okay, so like discipline, but time management, but like also just like technology. And with it was this idea of helping my kids. Like, I want them to be good kids. Like, no one wants to raise the kid that like, you know, punches everyone when they're walking through.
I find it interesting. I feel like a common thread, you know, you're talking about like generations before and now. I feel like some of those problems, a lot of them are like, we don't have like, like it takes a village. We're very individualistic in how we parent, very individualistic. And so you can't depend on.
But you're not the only one parenting. The screen is now parenting as well.
That
and so,
is another component.
Or I think, or like, you know, the influence of parenting.
Well, it's not really parenting, but I get what you're saying is it ends up being that influencing is. So like you don't have that community influencing you anymore. It's
right. So this got me to thinking, technology, right? Like, this seems brand new. And then I got into Genesis. In Genesis, I love this book because it just tells us all of our current realities, where they came from. And in chapter 11, they got this new technology. It's called the brick. And they I typed it up. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had bricks for stone and Whitmel. I don't know what that is, but it was for the mortar.
It's technology.
It was, yes. And they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its tops in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth. So four things. They made bricks. This was their technology, and we have bricks. They're called phones. It's a brick, okay? Number two, build a name for ourselves. Social media, influence, it's there. Fear of being dispersed. So there's this fear that it lies within individuals, young and old. Will anyone see me? Am I known? And so being dispersed. And so like there's that. And the last one was the story parallels Eden, in which people try to grasp the power of God. The story goes on and they're like, then
reach the heavens. We'll be in the heavens.
Yeah. Right. And how did Eden, where did it go wrong? When they tried to get the power of God without God. And what is technology? I want to operate as a God without, and like no one's picking up their phone and flipping through their feeds going like, and I shall be God. Scroll Facebook. Like that's not
right. But we're creating our kingdom.
There's different Candy Crushing. You're like whatever, game you want to play, there's something. And so I want to point out that technology is not morally evil or
Right.
good, and yet it does have a propensity to walk us
Mhm.
towards
Mhm.
one of those.
Mhm.
And so one of the
Mhm.
one of the best books I read, again, is this book, The Anxious
Mhm.
Generation, because it exposed for me just this whole idea of what a smartphone does to a childhood, what an iPad does to a 7-year-old.
Mhm.
And so through this book, he said basically it's not just that technology shapes your children, but that there's a second thing. And what he did was he said that technology has robbed kids of a childhood that exposes them to grow in emotional intelligence and social understanding, because their only interaction is with the screen. They no longer know how to. And so he actually elevates like, okay, we definitely have a rewiring issue going on with the screen, but there's a second thing going on where kids aren't knowing how to have empathy for peers
Mhm.
because they aren't playing. And he brings it even further. They aren't playing with one another unsupervised. So he just said what we have going on is we have overprotective parents of a child's physical safety, and we are under parenting, under protecting when it comes to the things of screens.
Digital.
And inside, one of the most stories is a girl sharing about her 10-year-old experience about her mom wouldn't let her leave the house without her being with her. Like there was all these protocols about how she needed to operate because it's unsafe out there. And then she's in the next room and she gets exposed to pornography for the first time. And her mom was completely oblivious.
Mhm.
And so you're just like, okay, so then he spells it out. He's like, this thing, look at the playgrounds we have. The playgrounds I grew up on,
Yeah.
my goodness, I remember at the school when someone somehow got his tooth connected to the chain on the swing and he got pushed off and the tooth stayed and he went. And
Good story.
and like you're just like, oh, and like he started crying. And I remember everyone else kind of like, oh.
Yeah.
Like you felt bad. This twirly around spinny thing,
Oh, yeah.
like in Atomo, we still have one in
Merry-go-round.
Memorial Park. Send your kids there unsupervised. Let them get hurt. It's good for them.
It's not holding up well though.
No.
But it's dangerous. I go for it. But here was this thought. Like if your supervisor is like, oh, that's not safe. That's not safe. And they don't know long-term how to self-regulate. Therefore,
Yep.
they are gripped by fear and new experiences. Take it further. He actually fleshes out, this is why kids aren't getting their driver's license when they turn 16. They're stalling. They're waiting because they're not like, is it safe? Blah, blah, blah. And oh my goodness. Now, again, not a believer. He has ideas in it that I'm like, I would tweak that one. Here's one.
Mhm.
He goes, as parents, we should be more gardeners, stewarding their growth, than builders, shaping them. And I would actually push back and I go, no, I'm a person of faith. We're blending the two together.
Yeah.
There are things that we are trying to shape within them. I want my children to have a biblical worldview,
Mhm.
of faith in Jesus, that we have one God,
Mhm.
that we will have, like,
Mhm.
that is some structure. And yet who you are in
Mhm.
Christ and how you are gifted, that is a garden I'm trying to steward. I need to learn, this one's more of an artist. This one's more concrete thinker. So,
Mhm.
so in all of this, like, he exposes, and this is where this podcast is going. I'm going to share his 4 antidotes
Mm.
that our society, if we would adopt, could break the cycle of screen addiction
Mm.
and the
Mental illness.
mental, like
Mental illness.
the mental illness and anxiety and depression and suicide and, dare I say, gender dysphoria and the like, all of what that is, all a decade kind of reality
in the making.
It's just very, like, so I could talk more about that. I want to get you to his 4 solutions because they're interesting to me, and I want to know. Here's his first one: no child should get a smartphone before high school. Okay, failed, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
all of ours are. We have one that's still not in high school,
Mhm.
but has a smartphone,
Mhm.
and we learned with Toby how he uses a smartphone is different than how Lydia used a smartphone and uses a smartphone. It's different than how Blythe uses a smartphone. What are some of the differences? Help people know, like, so that if they're thinking like all kids are the same when it comes to screens, we have not experienced that.
No. No.
So
Yeah.
what has been some of our
Some personalities can just literally get swept up in whatever it is that's in front of them and not even realize it. So they're not like looking to spend time on their screen. They just, it's like you can watch it like a fog, and then it's like, oh, hi, there's a world around.
Yeah.
And like I grew up, like I can't fall asleep to movies because I get so engrossed in the story that I can't fall asleep. And I feel like that's a little bit the same thing. And then like one of ours, just like the whole idea of technology. Now she's heard the most, she's the youngest, talking about technology and kind of, you know, the mixed bag of it. Anyway, so she was like, I want no part of it. Like, I just don't. But also it just doesn't captivate her mind.
Nope.
She like feels disgusting when she watches a movie. She just doesn't like that. She doesn't like having
not on the phone, just in general.
In general screens. So then the phone doesn't like, she's not captivated by Candy Crush levels or looking at other people's lives. I mean, it's not captivating for her in any way.
And I wonder how many parents, our motivation for getting her a phone was not because she was asking for one. It's
convenient.
It's convenient. It was just one of those
for communication.
Right. And so there's that. So his first thing is no smartphone before high school. When parents hear that, they're like, well, that's not going to work.
Right.
And his point is until we make that the normal.
Mm-hmm.
So in different seasons, we have regulated phone usage in our home in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
We have devices locked down and different, like no phone in a bedroom. Like, so I'll talk about more of that later. Here was his second idea. No social media before 16. Had everything to do with how your brain develops. So I'm not as smart as the two of you. What do you remember learning about like how the brain develops and when does it fully formed and do you remember some of this?
I know about the whole brain. I know the frontal lobe, which is executive functioning.
Already
so, like,
we are learning more.
Thank you,
The
Jenny.
executive function, people, is in the frontal lobe. Continue.
So that's like big decisions and knowing there's consequences to this decision. I mean, it's like choices, which I kind of wonder, like, will I think of this when I'm in heaven? I kind of want to ask God. It doesn't form till like 21, 23 new studies. It's getting later and later.
25 and 26 now.
And like, think of all of the decisions for your life you're making before that time. I'm like, God, what were you? You had to have had a plan.
Question here. I make all the big decisions, then I learn what the consequences are. Okay.
And then my brain can catch up to it. Yeah. I don't know. But that's, I mean.
Okay. Now, how does
late.
technology interact with all of that? It can stunt it, delay it, like you're like so.
Well, and there's the dopamine hits that you're getting, which is a hormone, which affects your brain is dictating to your hormones how to operate. But if your hormones are dictating to your brain, I mean, you're messing up neural pathways left and right. And
which some of you, this is brand new information. Most of you, you know this, but like the high big business, Facebook, all of them, they do studies and marketing on how to create the dopamine hit so that you will be attached.
Because it's addictive.
Right.
Our bodies
and if
naturally
you're addicted
want
to
it.
their product, that's money for them.
And most of their kids don't have the product.
Right.
From what they've shared.
Yes.
The people who are developing it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, this is bad. Yeah, right. Okay, number 3, phone-free schools. Because the information we're learning is that phones, they rewire your brain. Phones limit how good you are socially. And get this, phones.
You might not be able to learn as well.
It weakens your intellect. And so there's this, okay.
Right.
So now here in Ottumwa, that is the new rule. Let's talk about what are, like, it went to a vote.
Yeah. They polled parents.
Uh-huh.
And I think beyond just parents.
Okay.
I think it was, I'm not sure if staff members also were included in, I don't know how that.
Forgive us for not knowing all the information that we're talking about.
I know as a parent, I received.
Correct.
A survey.
And so it moved forward because enough said yes. Now, the ramifications of this are going to be like wild. All right. So what are some things you and I, and we've talked about, like, because of this choice, which I'm in favor of, also complicated my life a little bit because it was not unusual for last year there to be a change in plans and like, hey, Soph, mom's not getting you. I'm picking you up. Hey, Soph, I'm not getting you. Walk to Carrie and Kelsey's, we'll get you later, right? Like these kind of, and that little bit of information is not accessible. Okay, what else have we kind of talked about
with this decision?
Yes.
Yeah, it was like 60% of parents or the survey results, whoever that included, voted in favor of that. And so then we went to the school board and they approved it. So I love that has passed. I think that's just great. I am curious, a few different thoughts I have on it. One, the parents that voted for it to not be in schools, what are you willing to do at home then? Like,
so the parents that said, I think this is a good idea.
For schools.
Right.
Are we also like, oh, I think this is a good idea for us at home?
Well, we have limits at home.
Right. Yeah, no phones at home. I'm not going that extreme, but like, I'm like, oh man, are we putting all of the responsibility of phone monitoring on the schools?
We put a lot on the schools.
We put a lot, and another thing for the schools to have to parent and monitor and be a family for, kind of that sort of thing. And so I'm just mindful of the school now is in another hard position, possibly if the parents don't want to partner with.
Well, yeah, there's another high percentage that thinks this is a bad idea.
Right.
And so you can't tell me what to do. Right.
Yep. Yep.
And I just say we have to honor authority.
Right.
You might not agree.
Yeah.
But it's an indication on how you honor the Lord. It's a tough lesson.
Yeah. The other piece that will be interesting. Did you have more?
I want to hear it.
Okay. The other piece that will be interesting is there is a rewiring of the brain when you use the phone. AKA, there will be a detox happening. And the interesting part will be several things. But if you're at school all day and you don't have your phone, then you have 7 hours of detoxing. And then you pick up that phone right away, which I can say, like, this is not just our children that have an addiction to the phone.
What?
Right?
What?
How many times have you and I literally just confessed to you, like, I need to stop reading on my phone. I need to just to stop because it's taking over in different ways. But so acknowledging that piece of it. But like you pick up that phone and then you're on your phone all night. Like, so that's going to be interesting. And then you retox. Is that the thing? and then the next day you go to school and you detox again. So that will literally have physical, there'll be physical responses. There are going to be behavioral responses.
Behavioral is what I'm like, oh, the challenge is right decision, long on ramp.
Right.
Because of, there's clinical studies have said 7 to 10% will have a chemical, physical, like crash.
Well, it's going to be like medicine. I mean, when you don't give your medicine, you're supposed to have it. You're going to have that crash. And so the schools pray for those schools when those detox hours. And then at home, parents, can we have grace for kids who are, the brains are kind of fritzing out.
Yeah.
Like when they're, so.
Okay. Yeah. All that said, now let's get a little more practical.
Yeah.
I think from 0 to 5, it's a little bit tricky for me to say like what is appropriate because I'm farther removed from that season. And so my input on the 0 to 5 is like, man, sometimes we just watched someone's kid and I got introduced to Bluey. Best thing ever. Entertaining. I grew up with our kids watching Caillou, a whiny Canadian bald-headed kid that it's
awful.
Yeah.
And
then my parents are like, well, we had Barney. And I'm like, no, we didn't watch Barney. But it's progressively like.
Maybe parenting is easier.
It is easier. There it is.
Quality.
It's so amazing. So like that 0 to 5, like I'm just going to kind of like mute my input on what that looks like. I want to jump to like the 6 to 12, right? Like now my friend has a phone or like we're driving and I'm sick of this drive. Can I just play a game on my phone? Why can't we watch a movie? Interesting. There's a professor who said, hey, how many of you watch Netflix? And how many of you wish Netflix was never invented? He said, how many of you watch TikTok? How many of you wish TikTok was never invented? And so he tried to process. He's
like, what's
Netflix is telling stories.
Yes.
And I get wrapped up in story. TikTok, I know is wasting my life. I know it's.
And I'm frustrated by it.
And I hate it.
Yeah.
And I can't break free from it. It was just fascinating. Instagram was right there with it. So it was right, and just this whole different thing. So like with 0 to 5 and like, do we let them watch a movie? Do we not? Like, please educate us, Pastor Marty. And I'm like, well, I don't have much. I don't know. We had our kids watch Little Einstein. That's why they're all genius. Not true.
Classical music, Einstein, so you're covered.
Baby Einstein, was that what it was?
Well,
all right.
both, but yeah.
So here's some things we have done or have learned or wish we would have done. Okay. You ready for this?
Do I know these answers?
6 to 12-year-olds. Okay. Devices are used in a common area.
Yeah.
This is something where, like, if you're going to be on a device, I get it. I understand it, but you're in my proximity. There's not a secret observation happening. There's not like, you have your back to me. Please hear me. When they're 6 to 12, get in their screen business. The miss is you think it's innocent, but it's overwhelming. They've been exposed to pornography before age 10, which means devices shouldn't be alone in a bedroom or a bathroom. Just letting you know, all right?
Another thing with that too, I think there's a way in which you can interact with that though too. So your 7-year-old sitting there looking at something, and you don't have to be like, what are you watching? What are you watching? What are you watching? Yeah. It can also be more like, hey, what game are you playing? Like, what's the point? Like I genuinely don't know, because looking at them makes me kind of dizzy and sick. I'm that age.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of the game? Like, like, why is this one fun?
Right.
Like, and kind of throw it on, like, you know, and use just talk and use it as almost like let's connect over this in some ways. Also, then I'm also checking in on what actually, like, can you talk to other people with this game? Like, are you communicating with other players?
Well, we found that one out where,
right.
like,
we're like,
wait, you're talking. Do you know them? They're like, no. And we're like, can you turn that off? They're like, yeah. We should do that.
Do that setting. So I think it doesn't have to be like, what are you doing? I mean, so there's different tones that you can take in doing that too, that I think can make it better.
All right, here's another one.
Yeah.
Shared meals without screens.
Yes.
So, but this doesn't mean that you can't have, like, if I've been doing this podcast like this the whole time, right? How much do you feel like I'm listening to you? And you're like, you know I am, but like, this is right here. So now it's better. Right. Now it's better. Like, if you can't see, like,
or flip it over.
Research says this tells me I'm second most important. If this is, we're pretending this table so you can see it. And this tells me the exact same thing. Right. I'm still not the most important thing. And so learning as parents to go during mealtime, it goes on airplane mode because I'm present with you. I can just set it aside and voice it. Don't like, well, I'm not always that good at it. We'll get better at it. Like, there's a way where, like,
there's a choice.
Recently we went somewhere and I'm like, oh, I don't have my phone. And then you said, should we go back and get it? I'm like, I will survive, right? It's crazy, but like, we have to just start learning how to do life without it present. The recommendation for 6 to 12-year-olds is 2 hours of screen time.
Does that include school time on a screen? You know what I mean? Because now they're on computers at school.
I think what I've heard, if it's educational, like, then it gets a little bit different, but whatever. Talk to preteens about the risk of the content they will be exposed to. So at 6, the conversation might look different than the 9-year-old, but the 9-year-old should be having a conversation that, hey, there are times where you didn't ask for information to show up on your phone. We have 2 of our children have received pornographic material on their phone, maybe 3, unrequested and unsurprise element. So that happened before they were 14. Now, if we didn't have conversations about this previously, it creates it. Did we get it all right? No. We had challenges and struggles, but some of it is like, we don't have that conversation once. We revisit it again and again, because your child will encounter inappropriate.
Well, I think that comes back to how you do it too. Like, I think, like, if Sammy, he's 9, so, but like, if you can just normalize it, right? And I know you guys are open, but like, I just think if we can normalize it, like, this stuff, it's not always like their fault then. Because like the stuff will come at you, and it's not your fault that it's there.
Right. The shame that can come with
it.
It.
Like, oh, I know it's, I don't know. No,
but and also it dopamine.
Right.
I don't even know why. So now I want to look more, but I feel horrible about looking more, and like that whole thing.
Right. And so even just talking about, like, clarifying, like, you'll be curious. So here's what you do.
All right. Last thing on 6 to 12-year-olds, you need to focus more on in-person activity and sleep.
Say that again.
You need to focus on more in-person activity. We're doing something together and sleep, because what is happening is screen time pushes against those 2 things. Those 2 things are the 2 predominant things that make 6 through 12-year-olds healthy. Let me say this again.
Or depressed.
If
Yeah.
you're a 6 through 12-year-old, you need sleep and people to interact with to mature and grow. Screens rob you of both of those.
Yeah. And something I think about all the time, because my kids are in that stage, is it's almost always harder than giving them a screen.
Yes.
Like family movie night is great. We love family movie night. It's way easier to do that every night than to play board games or to run around in the yard. Or if I'm going to Walmart, I would much prefer my kids to be watching Blue on my phone than talking to them and having them ask for everything. You know, so it's always almost harder.
Right.
You just have to think about that long term, like, what do I actually want?
There's
harder in the moment.
I have to see. I did bring another book. I know you're shocked. I know you're shocked. This book, Think Ahead. I mean, I'm telling you, this is a parenting book as much as it's how to make your life better book. 7 decisions you can make today for the God honoring life you want tomorrow. It's a parenting comment right there, even though it's nothing to do with parenting. Is like, if I give in here, now please know, sometimes the iPad comes out because you're on the phone and it's an important phone call.
And that could be a good parenting decision.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you don't want to create so many rules, but the normative should be worked towards, again, the more screen time, the less sleep they will get and the less socially developed they will be.
And I quote, I think you all the time, unless you were quoting someone else, to my kids. They're like, we're bored in the car. And I say, focus is going to be the commodity of the future.
Yeah.
I was like, you have to learn to focus.
Man,
So
I read
I'm
that
sorry.
somewhere.
I quote you.
I'll take it. It's probably Craig Groschel. Ages 13 to 18, game-changing years. It's crazy. Like, I have learned our kids don't even know how to go visit the neighbor to ask the neighbor kid to play. They don't even know how to do it.
Yeah. Remember, was it Sophie? Like, just walk to Finley's house and just see if she'll want, what do you mean?
And I was like,
just knock on the door. Well, what happens if she can't? She'll say no.
Then
you
come
walk
back
home.
We experienced that this week.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there is physical realities out there. At the same time, our overprotecting of their physical is robbing them of what was a normal childhood for us, which was out, right? And so there's all of that kind of thing, because honestly, that physical protection is fear-based parenting.
Right.
And so one of the things that we've been doing more with our 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 15-year-old is creating third place hangouts. So it's not unusual for them. They're going to go hang out at the Hub Coffee. They went and walked around Walmart. Like they're like, we know who they are. We know like where they are, right? Right. So there's that kind of thing. 13 through 18, you don't think this is about screens, but it is. Up their responsibilities. You're going to help me make dinner. You're going to fold the laundry. Why? Their skills. This is the right time to teach them.
Yeah.
Your job is to teach them. Number 2, they're not on a screen. They might have the earbuds in. But like that, the thing that Lydia's a great example right now. We're like, can you go do the Walmart pickup?
Yeah. Okay.
So we're teaching her, we trust you. We're teaching her, you figure it out. We're teaching you, you add value to the family by right. So from 13 to 18, this is that time where you're needing to hand off the responsibilities, encourage them to get a part-time job. That is critical. Why? Because they socially have to now talk with people. They have
it's not all the same kind of people. It's like friends they choose.
Right.
You know, you have to navigate like.
Yeah. Another thing is give them access to lead. This is what I love about the Bridge Church. We will let you play a part in helping make the church make a difference. I love that you are not too young to add value, to be equipped to serve. And so, and over again, I see that. Get them in nature. We went on that walk to Garrison Rock and we weren't sure, like, is this the rock? And we're like, the path keeps going. And then you like, keep walking and you're like, I bet this is the rock, right? You know?
It becomes family lore.
Oh, I know.
Like they've talked about it before. Like, Mom, is this? Yeah.
Yeah. So there's, oh man, all of the jokes at your expense. I apologize.
Hey, I'm okay with it.
But I'm going to keep retelling them.
Yeah.
So there's that. Let me share something that was fascinating to me. It happened about 7 years ago, and it's sometimes quoted as the longest umbilical cord, the invisible fence. And it is that now, because of technology, you can track your child wherever they are.
Ooh, yeah, find friends or Life 360 or whatever.
Whatever app you use. And it's crazy because we have been those parents where it looks like child is in said location. And what do? We text, we call, we're like, what's going on? And we find out, nope, the location is messed, right? And so what does that create? A lack of autonomy, a lack of ability to grow into being like, and yet my son, who does not have a phone this week, his phone is in his dorm room.
He's in Wisconsin.
He's in Wisconsin.
Yes.
His phone is in Illinois. And there's been 2 times where I'm like, I wonder where he is. He doesn't have his phone.
Although Pastor Cub uses Find Friends like social media. So
he
that's
does, because he doesn't have social media.
He doesn't have it, so that's his.
Interesting. I heard there's some high school girls. They're debating right now. I heard the conversation today about ditching social media and what that would mean and who they're influenced by. And I mean, these are real things because why? They have a full-time job watching this stuff.
Yeah.
And so letting that go.
Also how they communicate.
Yes.
And so
how do you build how do you know where people are and how do
right?
you know?
And so, man, if we can foster more people are doing that, it would actually create more people hanging out together. So what are my thoughts for the 13 to 18-year-old? Prayer is the answer. I think as a parent, you have to know how to use parent controls. You have to know how to use filters. You have to create normalcy around checking content. I stand by. You shouldn't have your phone in your bedroom. I don't think it's wise to have a TV in your bedroom.
Or you mean do kids?
Yeah.
I mean, for us it's both. But
for us it's both.
Right.
What does that do? It creates conversation and sleep. That's what that. So these are some insights. Now, how this podcast is going to end is we know there's more questions. We don't claim to have the answers, but I want to give you an opportunity, and we'll do a bonus episode down the road to kind of pick up the topic of technology, and then we're going to move to how do we talk about sex and sexuality, because this is present. So in light of all of that, if you're a parent, you're not alone. You're not alone. God thought it through. He loves you. He's called you. To the fathers, you can't tell your kid, I love you enough. You can't hug them enough when they squirm away. You tell them, love you. To the moms, there's so much grace. You have so much pressure on yourself. And I just want to let you know, God trusted you. You're going to be okay. See you next time.